Thank you, Senator Manchin. Senator Cramer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General Brown, your entire family. Thank you for your service. Congratulations on the nomination. Let me just follow up with Senator Manchin's point about the Chief Management Officer. I just had to turn around and ask my staff, why did we get rid of it again? I remember when it happened. I remember the person in the position. We did it to, quote, cut bureaucracy, and what we did is cut our throats. And I'm with you, Joe. I hope we get it back. And then we have to, as members, insist, regardless of who's at the top, that we have some fiscal responsibility at the department. All right. Thank you for firing me up just before my questioning, Joe. It will not surprise you, General Brown, that over my nearly 5 years on this committee, I've asked almost every single combatant commander if they get enough ISR from the air, and it'll also not surprise you that every one of them says no. Now, that's a little bit like asking a billionaire if he has enough money, and the answer is always no. He can always use more. That said, you had a wonderful discussion in response to Chairman Reed's questions about interoperability, the changing role, as well as with Senator Ernst. But as Air Force Chief, you were making tough calls and asked for some cuts to airborne ISR, sometimes with the hope or the promise of replacing with space capabilities. But now in this new role that I like Senator Ernst, I suspect you will soon be confirmed. How do you plan to bridge that gap? Again, it's a more specific question to the broader question that Joni asked, but as you view the needs of the combatant commanders as they state versus the needs that the services want to provide, specifically in this case the Air Force with eyes in the sky, how do you see that moving forward in your decision making?
Well, Senator, this has been, as you highlight, this has been an ongoing debate between the services and the combatant commands at large. And having sat as a joint chief as the past 3 years, I've really started to think through how we approach this. And there's aspects of, when you look at not just the ISRs, what are you trying to get from the ISR? It's the information that's being provided from the ISR. And so there's one aspect of the platform, but how you're getting the information back to command headquarters so they can make decisions. And so with the stamp of the Space Force and access to space-based ISR, it's the combination of the two, and it's going to drive us to have to change some processes about how we provide information and how then we work with the combatant commands. And this is a conversation that we've been having. I've had this conversation with General Saltzman, the Chief of Space Operations, of how we lay out a different approach in some areas to be able to get to all of the information that's available and not just what's reliable on an airplane, airborne ISR that may not be there 24/7, 365. And that's where the focus has to be of how do we maybe in some cases do things a bit differently and provide not only the capability we have today, but even greater capability in the future.
I appreciate that. I want to piggyback a little bit on Senator Round's questioning. He's become very consistent, as I have, on what matters the most. And I have great respect for his questions about relieving the spectrum, particularly prior to the study that you've talked about. So without prejudging that study, and maybe even piggybacking a little bit on some of the things you said earlier about specifically our defense industry base, but I'm going to talk more about the private sector in general. What I think we don't talk about enough on the committee is the role that our technology companies, our telecommunications industry, particularly in 5G, all important back to some of the other discussions we're having. And you've been noted to be an innovator, and you have been, and appreciate that. What role has the private sector played in the advancement of the technological tools that are at your disposal, both in the Air Force and now perhaps, hopefully, as the Joint Force?
Well, they played a pretty big role, and I'll just tell you from my own personal experience, the opportunity to go out to Silicon Valley a couple of times and talk to those that have an interest in national security. That's a conversation that we need to continue to have, and so that we understand the aspect of all the capabilities we have within our nation and how they all, in some form or fashion, contribute to our national security. Even when we have these discussions about spectrum, There's an economic aspect that supports our economic security, but there's a national security, and we got to have the same those conversations in the same room because it has an impact in some form or fashion. And that's why it's important that we build those relationships and we have those that dialogue to ensure we're doing what's right for the nation as we make decisions.
Appreciate that attitude. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cramer. Senator Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Brown, thank you for your decades of service and welcome today. I want to